Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to Cilinix Crypto. Hope you're all holding on fine throughout these market circumstances. It can be difficult, I understand, okay, especially for the lesser experienced traders and investors under us seeing price action like this, where you say, oh, everything is going up, there's only good news coming out. It can be quite difficult to see price action like this. So I hope you're okay. And I do want to tell you, better times are coming. I'm not certain if they're coming short term. We'll talk about that in a moment. The price has been a little bit more bearish than expected this morning. And we'll talk about what's causing this, of course. That's the major thing that we'll talk about in this video, and what to expect based on that, right? So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about those fundamentals. Then we'll talk briefly about XRP and Ethereum. And then maybe if we have some time left, we'll talk about altcoins that I think are interesting. Although I must say that if I take a look at my spaghetti charts, let me quickly grab that right here so we can all know what I'm looking at. Altcoins at this point of time are definitely not interesting. Most altcoins are incredibly weak, or at least weaker than Bitcoin. So whenever that happens, I always say just focus on Bitcoin. But let's talk about it. This morning I said, okay, we need to get a strong reaction at 109.5 and then we can actually form a bottom. As you can see, we got a very weak reaction there this morning, and we also spoke about that in my morning update, and I said that in my morning Bitcoin report I always write. I said it's either going to be another drive down, which we also spoke about yesterday evening already in the live stream, or we can hold it. But because we did not hold at 109.5 and we actually broke down below that with relatively high volume for that time period, we made another low, and that's what we're doing right now. And you can see on the lower time frames we do have strong support right here on the daily time frame, on the 3-day time frame, on the weekly time frame as well. But ultimately, it's a little bit dire, and it's dire for one major reason, and that's the fundamentals. It's also, I must say, the fundamentals are not amazing right now, and we'll talk about why in a moment. I must also say that crypto specifically is also weaker. It really seems to me that Friday the 10th of October, right, when we had that massive liquidation spike, it seems like some firms just went bust, and they still have assets. They have assets they want to sell off. And that's what we're doing. And I think that's also why crypto is suppressed. If you compare it, for example, to other other equities, such as the S&P 500. I mean, the S&P 500 at this point of time is trading at the same levels as Tuesday. There's barely anything going on. Yesterday, after the Federal Reserve interest rate decision, we got some bad news, right? The probability, and this is what's causing the bearish pressure right now, it's a mix of relative weakness in crypto and the fact that yesterday the Federal Reserve interest rate decision and the press conference was relatively bearish. Although I must say, like right now, the probability of a rate cut in December 2025 has already increased a little bit. And then if we take a look at other relevant statistics, right? So then I'm talking about the volatility index. Volatility index did go up a little bit, as you can see right here, but ultimately it's still very low. It's lower than where it was Wednesday. It's lower than where it was the entirety of Wednesday, but on average from August, it's relatively low. It's normal. And then you look at and you look at bond yields. Bond yields since yesterday evening started to rally up as well, which is generally a bad sign, or it's a sign of monetary policy expectations that go against Bitcoin or go against the risk on assets. That are usually not good, but ultimately this has found resistance and it's pulling back, even though crypto is still relatively weak. And then you take a look at the dollar strength index, which historically, this is not always true, but historically the dollar strength index being bullish is bad for crypto. But then again, you can see that the dollar strength index also found support right here, the 16th and the 17th of September. And back then, crypto was able to get some strong bullish momentum as well. So the fundamentals are not great. And yes, this is the first time that equities have actually found some resistance in the last week. But this very much seems to be crypto specific. And I would be very careful right here because there seems to be some sort of entity selling. There seems to be something that happened since Friday the 10th of October, which we do not know, which is the key reason why crypto is weaker. And then I have to tell you, well, do I think it's most likely that the critical supports that we are at right now, around 107 and 108,000 is going to hold? I would say yes, based on the fundamentals, which I think this move If it's based on fundamentals, it's an overreaction. And based on the technicals, I think this is a very strong support level, and breaking down below a strong support level like that would almost certainly need to be caused by news. And I think it's very, very hard to believe as well that you know, I think something broke the 10th of October. But if it was that massive, I think we would have known about it, right? So that's why I would be very careful with crypto. I'm going to be completely honest and say that I have scaled into some positions. Now, am I comfortable in those positions at this point of time? Not completely, but I am sticking it out with them. I mean, if they turn into losses, it's always a possibility. I'll take the losses. But those are my personal decisions, right? And that's the personal risk I'm taking. That's definitely not something I'm telling you to do right now. But ultimately, I do think potentially with a spike down a little bit lower that we will be able to find support. But for now, I think it's more likely we'll find some sort of stability between 107 and 111,000, and you know, rallying back up to our next main price target at 114,000. Maybe down the line, but for now I think that's a little bit early to say. So that's what's going on with the markets and what's going on with Bitcoin. Let's hope for a bounce. I mean, if we don't get a bounce, like I said, at some point of time we will get it, and we will get some good market circumstances. And until then, it's key to have proper risk management. And to potentially go into capital preservation a little bit, but that's up to you. That's personally not something I'm worried about too much. Now, when we're talking about XRP and Ethereum, because I know a lot of you are interested in that, fortunately, I have to say, you were prepared for this. I already said this morning on XRP, I think it's most likely will drop down into 2.41 because of the weaker fundamentals. And I said with Ethereum, and you can still see the lines, I think we're going to retest that level as well. But for both of those, it's also true that I'm slightly bearish on them, and I predicted that they would drop down. But ultimately, I do think support is relatively close, and I do think we'll be able to hold that support. So those are my thoughts. Finally, summarizing for Bitcoin, and Bitcoin obviously, like I said, matters for the entire market. I think we are going to spike down a bit lower. So then we're talking about 107,000. We don't have a lot of imbalances to the downside left, to be fair. But we have some strong support right here at 106.8 and 107,000. But for now, unless we actually hear about bad news coming out, if we get some new bad news, you know, new tension between China and the United States, then we can have a breakdown. But for now, I think we'll spike down lower, but then from there I do expect us to reclaim critical support at 108 and 107,000 and stability around 109 and 110. Those are my thoughts for now. That's what I think you need to know. Take care in these markets. I'll see you all in my next videos, and bye.